For me, it's like Nick doesn't match me intellectually. Nick doesn't match my humor. He doesn't match me creatively. He doesn't match me financially. He doesn't match me like anywhere.
I'm glad we can at least agree that I don't ever want to see you again.
So we got a new batch of Love is Blind episodes, and have you ever looked at someone and been like, I can tell that you've never been smacked in the face before? That is how I feel about Hannah every time she opens her mouth. It is just unreal. Aside from that, you guys, we are down to the wire. We are merely days away from them getting married, and Ramses is still being problematic, and Tyler is still lying. We need to get into it. Let's go. Hi guys, welcome back to Nikki Faces Reality. We are here to discuss Love is Blind, Season 7, Episodes 10 and 11. Quite honestly, at this point, I don't know if anyone's gonna get married. We're seeing some breakups, we're seeing some shaky maybes, we're seeing people delusionally saying yes. It's a hard watch, but it's also a chaotic watch, you know what I mean? So in this video, I'm gonna do a recap of the episodes and give you my commentary. Please let me know yours in the comments. Make sure to like, because it really does help me. And if you're new here and this is your thing, subscribe. And yeah, let's just jump into episode 10. It picks up with Hannah and Nick, and it opens up with them doing like an engagement photo. It is so awkward. First of all, it is fugly. Second of all, they have no chemistry. There was no thought put into it. It was just awful. We see Ramses and Marissa, and she's, deep in thought because the last conversation that they had, he said that he didn't want to use a condom. And she's like, well, I don't want to be on birth control. So the vibes are not lovey-dovey how they usually are. But when Ramses checks in on her, he's like, listen, I'm just a little thrown off because we agreed on the right timeline to have kids in the pods. And now you say that you want kids sooner. So I'm a little thrown off by that. So we're just gonna completely skip over the fact that you said you don't want to have babies, but you also don't want to use condoms. Got it. But his argument is just like, okay, like we're not agreeing on that. I'm concerned that we're not gonna align on the big things. At this point, I really do think that this couple can ask each other questions in the pods, because why are you facing all these hard stuff now? But these two have this disposition where they are passive aggressive, like they want to be positive so bad, but like it makes it even more uncomfortable. So they're trying to make breakfast like nothing is happening and there's like a huge elephant in the room. But Marissa finally breaks and she's like, listen, I'm a sick person. I'm sick right now, but like I deal with things and I don't feel like I should have to explain that to you for you to be okay with our intimacy. Because remember, he said that he wouldn't get satisfaction if he didn't do it raw. But she's like, okay, I get that, but I am a sick person and adding more things to the mix aren't great. It takes them a while to like say it, but apparently I think like her libido hasn't been the same. She just hasn't really been into it. She kind of recoils when he touches her. And she's just like, listen, like there's going to be waves where I can't be as affectionate and as sexually active. And I need to know that you're going to still stand by me. And he doesn't say, yes, I'm going to stand by you. He's just like, well, I want to figure out like what's going on because I like touch you and like you pull away. And she's like, sometimes I don't want to be touched. Of course, compatibility in this area is important, but I think you have bigger issues if you feel the need to abandon your partner because they weren't active with you for a week. And so that's her big insecurity, especially after the condom talk. When Marissa calls out in this moment, she's like, listen, intimacy comes in waves. And I'm concerned that you are concerned by us not being intimate for a week. Barely, because she says that she's only said no to him 3 times. I'm sure for Ramses, he's like, oh my God, we were hot and bothered in Mexico. Yeah, you guys were in vacation. Now you're back home, you're back into your schedules. She's in law school. She's trying to be a fiance to you. She's filming this show and all of its responsibilities. Also, I think that they glazed over the fact that she's driving to Baltimore every time to go to school. That is taxing. And she's sick right now. So she's like, I am not in the mood. And I am concerned that you find this an issue because what if I get cancer, God forbid? How are you going to act when I have postpartum with a baby and like I can't be active? Like, are you going to be worried about our relationship? Are you going to want to leave me then? And he doesn't say, no, babe, like that wouldn't make me leave you. He's like, yeah, that's a good point. He's like, I want to marry you. I just want to get it right. And Marissa's trying so hard not to cry. She's like turning away from him and he keeps hugging her. And in this moment, she doesn't need physical affirmation. She needs emotional affirmation. She needs that security. And Ramses is a flight risk. The next scene is Alex and Tim, and we finally get to meet Tim's parents. And they're gorgeous. But immediately I was like, oh no, they're not going to make it. Because Alex comes in to greet his parents with her hand in her pocket. And I'm like, when we saw Tim, he was grilling it up. He was giving everyone straight handshakes. He was meeting everyone in the eye. Like there was preparation. It looked like she had just came into his apartment, had her vest and everything, but it was the hand in the pocket that really sent me. Like I said, his parents are gorgeous. You can tell that his mom is like the extrovert. His dad is the introvert. Also, apparently Tim's name is Drake. Okay. And the mom immediately asks Alex, have you noticed how he gets when he's in his feelings? He needs to isolate. Yeah, he got that from me. And Alex is like, yeah, I've seen it. As you guys recall, Alex had a problem with him stepping away. And yeah. But yeah, you guys, I'm really stuck on the fact that Drake went above and beyond for Alex's parents, you know? And Alex didn't even like prepare anything for them. I'm not saying she has to be Betty Crocker in this bitch, but like be like, oh my god, this is from my favorite bakery. I want you to try it. Like a gesture. And there's like the routine questions of like, why do you think this is it? And Alex, you know, talks about like their shared values and family and how she doesn't believe in divorce and she believes in like working it out to the end. There's a moment where he steps away with his parents at the balcony and they're like chit-chatting and he's like, yeah, you know, she's great, but we're struggling with some of the little things. And he's trying to find a way to get them in sync with it. His mom is like, I don't know what you're talking about, but the things that ache your partner, the things that matter to your partner, should matter to you. And everyone has a right to be particular, but like if you've chosen this person and they like cuddling, it can be a nuisance to you, but it matters. Just do it, you know? But he seems very like set in his ways. Then next up, we see Ashley and Tyler, and Tyler's just seated on that couch, just stewing on what lies to say next. So Ashley comes back and Tyler's like, oh my god, like I'm just so lucky that you're here talking to me still. And Ashley's like, yeah, because, you know, communication is our superpower, which is why this is so disappointing. And she's really poised in this combo. And she's like, you know, I just feel caught off guard and we're so close to our wedding and I just don't know anything. So he says he has queer friends who couldn't afford the process. So that's how he made the donation. And Ashley is like, okay, so how involved are you? Do the kids know what you look like? And this man looks up at the ceiling and is like, no, I don't think so. Tyler, people lie every day, but you must be missing like a few screws to lie like that on TV and think that the TikTok FBIs don't already have receipts. There have been so many pictures of him and the kids released that at this point, I'm like, if I were Ashley, I would be filing the divorce papers. I don't know if they ended up getting married, but if they did, filing those immediately. Because someone that can lie to you straight to your face like that is just diabolical, honestly. And like at this point, him lying is unprovoked because she's clearly in a space where she wants to accept this. So just tell the full story. But yeah, Ashley says that she wants space and she needs time to process this. And he's like, yeah, thank you. Like whatever you need. And if that means that you don't want to get married with me, that's fine. I'll understand it. It'll hurt, but I'll understand it. We see Garrett and Taylor for a second, and they're like, I don't know if it's a bookstore, a calligraphy store, but she pulls out this like stack of letters from her grandpa, and she, I guess, wants to like have a letter station at their wedding, which I think is really cool. And she's like, yeah, I was thinking I could write something special for your mom. And Garrett's like, yeah, I think she'll appreciate it, even if she doesn't show up. I really do think that they have a problem with her not being white. And while I think Garrett is great, I think that his hesitation with race in the pods said everything that I needed to know. Next up is Hannah and Nick, and they're doing some like outdoor activities indoors. Nick looks miserable, but he keeps doing these things, I guess because they're adventurous, but he looks petrified. And they sit down, and Hannah looks at Nick and says, "Your icks are starting to become funny to me." Because wasn't she the one crying in the pods about not wanting to be judged? And at every turn, unprovoked, she says things like this to him. And I wish that it would get better, but it's actually gonna get worse. I think the reason that I'm peeved with Hannah is that she's such a bully and she can't handle it, right? Because if someone talked to her the way that she talks to Nick, she wouldn't leave the house. And so they're seated there and she's like, "Are you gonna say yes at the altar?" And he's like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Are you?" And I don't think she's gonna say yes. I just think she wants to be chosen, you know? And she's like, "Yeah, in the pod you said that you read, and I've never seen you read." He's like, "Yeah, because I've been busy working." I feel really bad because he's like, "I've been working nonstop, and like yesterday, maybe I could have read instead of going to a game." You don't have to explain to her what you do with your free time, however you decide to distress. People that like micromanage you in this way, there's a special place in hell for them. That's just no way to live. And I love that he tells her, he's like, sometimes you talk to me like I'm an idiot, like I can't get anything right. And it's with everything. Apparently she like went off on him because he couldn't get the like light switch off the right way. This was in their hotel in Mexico. You see how many lights those suites have. He couldn't get the right one right away and she was like barking at him. And so he's like, I just would like to be treated as an equal. You talk to me like I'm beneath you. And she's like, "Well, I'll treat you like an equal when you start acting like an equal." I know this not just say that. Everyone deserves decency. He's not asking you to kiss his behind. He's asking for respect. And remember, respect is one of her things that she demands it, but she can't give it. And you know what upsets me about this thing? That this monster is going to get to the reunion and the Lachey's are going to kiss her ass. Nick is going to be the bad guy. Nick has a lot of growing to do, but he has shown incredible restraint that he has displayed. Even in moments where I'm sure he wants to explode, is commendable. This scene ends with her being like, "I'm mature and ready to get married, and I need to make sure that you're mature and ready to get married." Is maturity in the vicinity? Because I don't see it. We see Marissa and Ramses again, and they're doing some wedding planning. It sounds like she's been doing most of it, so she's like, "Hey, I would like your input." But she has some interesting choices, like she doesn't want an aisle, and he jokes, he's like, "Are we gonna ascend from heaven? Like, where are we coming from?" It seems like their intimacy is back on track. It sounds like she was just PMSing, but still, it's a real thing, like, "I may not be on, and I need you to be okay." And she's like, "Listen, I'm just gonna need assurance until we get to the altar." And he agrees, but I have a hard time reading Ramses because, again, he likes to smile through things, but it always seems like he's in thought. So I don't know. I don't know what his intentions are, You guys. The next scene is with Alex and Tim. We are in their apartment. Tim sits on the couch and he is in a mood, okay? You can tell his body language, his hat. Alex just fixed herself up some food. She's seated by the table and he's like, "Are you able to talk?" And she's like, "I haven't eaten all day." And he's like, and she's like, "Do you want me to come next to you?" And he's like, "Well, I would like your full attention." So she goes with her plate of food and he's like, "I feel a way about the fact that my parents drove here for 10 hours to see us and you fell asleep. Didn't I call that the whole energy was off?" "Yes, I did." It's like what I said with Marissa. People are tired because they're filming, they're working, they're like doing all these activities. It's a lot. But when families are involved, you gotta push through. Especially because he went all out for yours. I don't care if I'm yawning while I'm next to them. I'ma push through because I'm be like, "Oh my God, girl, I'm so happy to see you." But she apparently fell asleep. Also keeping in mind that this is probably the only time you'll be able to see them before you get married. So these are your in-laws. Like, this is who you're going to spend holidays with. You want to get to know them. So off the jump, I'm like, oof, I understand why Tim's disappointed. Tim is coming in, as Tim does. He's coming in hot. He's like, this is my only family. Alex is doing the thing where she's not really listening. She's just being, okay, like ready for you to finish so that she can talk. And I think this is something that happens often because he's like, are you going to let me talk? Can I finish? And she's like, sure, absolutely, go. And it's like, are you listening though? I honestly don't know which one of these people are worse. But anyway, they have completely different recollections of what happened. So from her story, she actually spent 4 hours with them, which is a good amount of time, right? And then apparently I think she fell asleep, and the next day she had to work. And I think he was trying to either check in with her or find an opportunity to get them to see each other one last time. And she wasn't being really receptive through text. And so then when she felt like calling him, he was like, no, I actually don't want to talk right now. There's a lot that I feel like could have been communicated. These are the people that you're supposedly going to marry. Why are y'all playing this game of cat and mouse, especially when your family's involved? But it's obvious that they're having 2 separate fights. And Tim did the thing that I think is my trigger in relationships. When you have an issue, you address it within that 24 hours. If you address it with me a week later and I'm thinking that we're good, that's gonna really mess with me because I'm thinking that we've moved on and you're still harboring feelings and malicious thoughts about me from a week ago. I don't like that. And I always said that Tim was spiteful from the moment we were introduced to him, right? He's seated there in front of Alex and he's like, well, there's just a lot of things that we don't align in. I woke up at 8 a.m. to cook for your family. I served them. I did this, I did that, which I think is amazing. However, he felt a way that Alex didn't take initiative to clean. He cooked, she should clean. I think that that's a solid partnership. I do that with my friends. You shouldn't do all of the labor. Given that we've seen Alex's home, I'm not surprised that she didn't take initiative to clean. But also, closed mouths don't get fed. And that is what Alex tells him. She's like, here's the thing. We first have to be honest with the fact that things have not been the same since the pods. And it's mainly because of this. I feel like you're holding me to this unspoken expectation, but you never communicate with me, and I can't read your mind. If an expectation was that I should clean it, you should have communicated that. And he's like, well, I'm not the person for you if I have to communicate that kind of thing. You could be with your dream person. You will always have to communicate. But I'm also like, girl, if things have not been the same since the pods, why would you let him have that sacred time with your family, specifically your dad? You don't play about things like that, But I think it's with what she says that she doesn't believe in divorce, and I think she really wanted to see this through. But Tim is just checked out at this point. There have been a few things for him that he just can't get past. And he's like, yeah, honestly, in this moment, I don't foresee me saying yes to you at the altar. And Alex is like, well, I have some things to say about that. And he's like, I'll listen. She's like, okay, but are you going to listen to keep an open mind, or have you already made up your mind? And he's like, no, I've made up my mind. And she's like, okay, well, I guess we have nothing to discuss. And she tells him, she's like, this is just not right. You just met my family. I told you that I would take this to the very end, and you just want to quit at the smallest inconvenience. And he's like, it's not small to me. And at this point, they're just throwing jabs. She kind of throws jabs at his temper tantrums, which they both partake in. But at the end of it, he's like, yeah, so let's agree that I never want to see you again. And he just walks away. And she's eating her food and texting, probably the group chat, this mother effer just dumped me. And I called it from the beginning. I think that when he met her father, I was like, oh, there's hope because we're seeing a different side of him. But this is who he is at his core. He's a little petty. He's a little calculated. I mean, this man, after all, did refer to himself as a dog. So, But anyway, we see everyone getting Amazon packages with like 1920s flapper items. So there's like a big event where everyone's gonna meet up along with people from the pods. The only thing that I want to highlight about this is that Hannah is like, oh my god, is there anyone that you're excited to see? Any loose ends? And Nick is like, you know what? I'm really looking forward to seeing Katie just because she was my number one in the pods for like 3 days. So I just want to like see, like out of curiosity. And Hannah's like, oh, like you have unfinished business? And he's like, no, I'm just curious. Keep that in mind. So everyone's making their way to the 1920s party. It's giving Gatsby. And we see Garrett and Taylor outside getting into like a bit of a fight because she, I guess, found out that one of his exes reached out and he liked the message. That is what he says outside, that he liked the message. And she's like, listen, this isn't gonna fly. I don't do communication with exes. I'm really triggered right now because I've been cheated on, and like marrying you in this way is a leap of faith. It's a risk, and I can't do this if you're going to, potentially cheat on me. Many people would get easily defensive, but I really like Garrett in this moment. He communicates clearly, as does she, and he reassures her that like nothing will happen, nothing has happened. It was harmless. He wasn't thinking about what that response would mean to her, and it will never happen again. That is what they say. She's really upset, but she's like, you know what? It's awful timing. I hate being mad at you, but like, we have to go inside. And she tries to like table it, but you can see she has like the puffy eyes. We're inside. Alex shows up by herself. Tim shows up by himself, and they're like at opposite sides. They're talking to people and acknowledging that they're no longer together and have zero plans of talking to each other. And so Alex is like telling the girls this, and Ashley's like, oh, let's not talk about my situation. And they proceed to talk about her situation. She's like, yep, he has kids, but it's for his queer friends and he's just a donor. And again, I don't think kids would have stopped her. I just think it's the whole deception of it all. It also sounds like she's just gonna forgive him because she's like, I have never felt a connection like this. Oh, my heart breaks for Ashley, honestly. Monica comes in and she spills all of the tea about Steven. Apparently they had like a post-breakup phone call and it was like 2 hours and like they just got closure. I'm honestly shocked that he wasn't at this party. Maybe they're saving him for the reunion. Bowden comes in and the cameras immediately go to Marissa. It was hilarious. The Katie girl comes in and of course it pans to Nick. And this is a hottie, okay? But it looks like her and Hannah are really close friends because Hannah immediately leaps into her. And Hannah is the one that takes Katie to Nick and is like, hi, Nick, this is Katie. And I'm like, Hannah is super insecure. So was this like a test? And then Nick walks off and Katie girl tells Hannah, Nick is really cute. Like, he's really cute. And Hannah did not like that. Then we see a moment with Ashley, Tyler, Garrett, and Taylor. And they're talking about what just happened between them. But in this version of the story, Garrett says, yeah, and I responded to my ex saying, like, I didn't tell you, but I'm engaged now. And like, going off and on, which sounds really rehearsed. So I don't know if he actually sent that. But Taylor's like, you told me that you only liked the message. Now you're telling other people you responded? Which one is it? Where's your phone? And he's like, oh, my phone isn't here right now. It's like, you didn't tell me that you responded. Like, you're changing the story. He's like, I don't remember what I told you. Like, isn't that the same thing? Taylor is getting so angry and Tyler is like, why don't I give you guys some space? And Taylor's like, you know what? Actually, I'm gonna go. And she goes to the bathroom and cries. Ashley follows her. Garrett is seated there like, I'm an idiot. We see a funny moment between Ramses, Marissa, and Bowden. You guys remember there was like a whole love triangle. Ramses is like trying to be funny and be like, oh, let me give y'all some space. Which I think in some way is generous because they did have a connection. But they're talking and I'm like, oh yeah, there's nothing here. Marissa confirms it. She's like, yeah, there's no romantic connection, but I do have like a lifelong friend in him. And I think she does because they really did have a lot in common in the pods. But you guys, we see a scene with the girls and Katie is there, so is Hannah. And Katie keeps saying, oh my God, you guys, Nick is so cute. I probably shouldn't say it respectfully, but he's so cute. There, I said it. And Hannah's just like, Hannah kind of like turns away and like talks to Ashley, and Ashley's asking her, so how has it been? And Hannah doesn't need a mic. She wastes no time in being like, I feel like I'm training him like he's a boy to a man. And Ashley's like, well, you're so fun. Like, why don't you let him see your fun side? And she's like, I know, I'm just so hard on him. I can be so critical because, I'm so critical of myself. Honestly, I have failed to see her be critical of herself. But this is the moment where I'm like, oh, the drinks are flowing. Because Hannah then starts oversharing about like, with Nick, I've had to teach him to be explorative. And he's just not by nature. He's not explorative with cuisine, with activities, and sexually. And she goes into detail about what he doesn't like to partake in. And I'm honestly, sexual compatibility is really important. I will never deny that. But you have to have some effing decorum to talk at length about how your partner falls short sexually on camera. It's just so degrading. And again, if you think that I'm being too harsh on her, think about it if a man was saying that about a woman. And Ashley, pobrecita, is listening to this and she's like, Like, I think that this was more than she expected because I don't think that she would ever, like, unleash Tyler's dirty laundry in that way. Like, it's just tacky. So the next scene that we see is Katie pull up to talk with Nick, and Hannah is like right across from them and she's like watching everything, and they're exchanging pleasantries, and Katie's like, listen, I didn't choose you because you presented yourself as the stereotype of every single guy that I've dated before, and I'm 35, I'm single, I'm not here to repeat the same mistakes. So that's why I passed on you. And Nick, like everything else, took it to the chin and he's like, listen, like, I understand. It all worked out the way that it needed to. I think that you're beautiful inside and out. I was always attracted to you. And I know that you're going to make someone really happy. And I think that the way that he talked about it was in a super honest way, but still appropriate for me, for my terms. The next thing that Katie did, I think, was so impactful because she exemplified that it is possible to give someone constructive criticism without breaking them down and without being a complete witch about it. She gives him direct examples, not in a way like I'm talking down to you, but more like I need you to understand my side. She's like, yeah, I shared something really vulnerable with you in the pods, and you showed no interest. You asked no follow-up questions. She mentions that he was making some like objectifying jokes and she just felt uncomfortable because, again, her past. And she's like, you lead a lot with your charm and charisma, and you should lead more with like your emotional depth as well as your values. And she just, said that like he has a beautiful soul and like people need to get to know that. So like it was just an impactful way to be like, you have some growing to do, but I think that you are a good person. Like she talked life into him, and I'm sure that felt so good after being berated for however long by your actual fiance. And she ends her convo being like, I'm so proud of the growth that you've already made, and I'm sure that there's more to come. It's almost like it takes nothing to be kind. So Garrett and Taylor. So we go back to Garrett and Taylor. And Taylor at this point is crying in the club. She's crying in this bar. She's like, you lied to me. Why did you admit that? And they get into this back and forth a little bit about like semantics. But the point is, he's like, I'm an idiot. I didn't realize that like communicating in this way was an issue, like I've said. I will make it up to you. Like, I want to be with you. And she's like, honestly, we're supposed to meet my family tomorrow. I don't feel like I'm at 200%. But if we don't meet my family, like, we're not doing this. So she's like, I honestly don't know what to do. I think that this was bigger than Garrett. I think that this is a wound for Taylor. And I think this is like new territory for them to like grow through together. but they end up leaving because she's just a mess, a wreck. And so that is where episode 10 ends. We jumped straight into episode 11, and it picks up on that same night, this time with Hannah and Nick. And of course, Hannah was keeping her eyes locked in on Nick and Katie. So she's like, I need to know what you were talking about. And he's like, oh, we were just catching up, talking about how it's been. And she's like, okay, well, you guys were talking for 40 minutes. And she just kept saying that like she found their giggling annoying. And it's just very interesting because she refers to Katie as like one of her best friends. I don't know if they knew each other before they were in the pods, but if they knew each other just in the pods, how is someone that you know for 2 minutes your best friend in the whole wide world? This is giving me Aaliyah and what's that girl? The girl that got married, Puerto Rican. It's giving me flashbacks of them, that they were like all best friends, and then all of a sudden she's like, Uche's my ex. It's giving that. Anna's annoyed at the fact that he spoke to Katie for that long. And my thing is, if that's your best friend and that's your man, just step in. 20 minutes, you're like, all right, that's enough. What are we talking about? And butt in. But she didn't. Instead, she sat there, watched them, stewed, because Katie is this hot girl and Hannah is annoying. Hannah is insecure. And she just starts going off on him, being like, I turned you from a boy into a man. And he starts laughing because he's like, there's no way you just said that. Out of her mind, okay? And she's like, I used to be a fun person. I was so fun. And I thought that I was going to be fun tonight. But I can't. So I'm just so stressed out. And then she tells him that Katie told her like 3 separate times that she thought he was cute. He was just like, I feel a way about that. And Nick is like, how is that my problem or fault? Because she never told him, hey, I don't feel comfortable because Katie said this. She ignored him most of the night. So how was he supposed to know that she was thinking all of this? Like, it sounds to me like you need to have a strong conversation with Katie. But she came to their apartment with like all this venom. And Nick is like, this is misdirected. Also, you guys, they have been drinking. So she ends up walking off and Nick is just rambling on like, you think I'm stupid, you think I'm slow, you don't trust me. And she like fakes it like she's going to bed. And then she comes back because he won't stop talking. And she's like, hey, I'm not mad at you. Let's talk tomorrow. You look hot. And it's just so funny that she's only calling him hot now because she realized that he is desirable to other people. Did you guys clock that? But anyway, they kiss and go to bed. So the next scene is Garrett and Taylor, and I was very shocked to see that they landed in San Diego and were all smiles. Apparently the night before, after she found out that his ex had slipped in the DMs, they didn't sleep. They were up all night talking it through, and she feels better about bringing him here to her hometown. He does get to meet all of her family. It wasn't recorded on the show, but she showed us like a selfie video and everyone looked happy, so I think that it went well. It looks like Garrett was accepted right in. The next scene we see is of Ashley and Tyler. I think they're like at a speed racing. I don't know what it's called, but they're in like cars. So Ashley says that the shock of the kid situation has worn off and she's just trying to wrap her mind around what it would be like if the kids are involved. And babe, if you marry him, they're going to be very involved because according to pictures, so is he. But yeah, it sounds like she's on board to still marry him no matter what. Which has me questioning, what is he telling her like when the cameras are off? Is he sharing more information or is she going into this blindly? We see Marissa and Ramses really quickly. They're filling out like their wedding license. And you guys, he doesn't know her birthday. He doesn't know her phone number. These people don't know anything about each other, okay? But the next scene again is Hannah and Nick. They're waiting to meet her friends. And Hannah's doing the thing where she's talking to him like she's his teacher. And Nick is so submissive to her that he's giving her like way too much credit. He's like, yeah, I've learned so much from here. The friends come in and at first it starts out fine. They're asking him questions. But of course, it wouldn't be a Hannah interaction without throwing wrenches of her own. I'm guessing the questions that her friends were asking were not aggressive enough. But I want to call out that she mentions that after the duck incident, it came up because she was talking about like respect and him being too much of a flirt and things like that. She's like, yeah, after the duck incident, I did call you Icky Nikki. If this was a trolling account, I would go ham on this girl because her audacity is wild. But this conversation is just about like her being like, well, I need this, I need that. And he's like, yeah, I could do it. And she's like, well, why haven't you done it? And I agree. Like, if you say that you can do something, if you're going to promise certain things, you have to act on it. But I'm not going to work on my issues with you in front of my friends. I'm not going to set you up. If I have reservations, like, I don't need to put you on trial. And I feel like that's what every interaction with her is. Like, Nick is always being interrogated. And these two just start bickering in front of her friends. And then it gets to a moment where like her friends and her are ganging up on him because they're like, she's not asking for a lot. She's asking you to help with the dog and throw out the garbage and not flirt with people. And he wasn't saying that those things are hard to do. He's just saying that they fight so much about the little things. And that's why he's deliberating what the decision should be. That he loves her, but like these things keep coming up for a reason. And she's like, they're coming up for a reason because you're the problem. Hannah does not like this man. And he has work to do, yes. But she has the kind of personality that I don't think she'll ever be satisfied. And she needs some help. We see a quick scene with Taylor, Garrett, and her mom. Her mom is here in DC because they're here to try on wedding dresses. And it's safe to say that they have really taken Garrett in. The mom says that she's really excited to just be included in these plans. That she basically talked her husband off the ledge and was like, this is a good thing. They're really two smart individuals. They've really thought this through. We need to support them. And she adds that this isn't about intellect, this is about love. And these two are just so moved by her openness. And I think Garrett is particularly because his family has been giving so much pushback. So I'm sure it feels nice to be like, okay, like there's a motherly person in my life that is welcoming me in this way and my person. It is the day where people are trying on wedding dresses and Hannah's supposed to go with her mom, and we see a quick moment with her and her mom. And her mom is, trying to check in, and she's like, oh my God, this is such a special day. And Hannah's like, yeah, it's special, right? She immediately is like, Nick doesn't match me intellectually. Nick doesn't match me financially. Nick doesn't she just goes on, and you see her mom rolling her eyes okay. And I agree. I'm with her mom. I'm like, if you feel all of this, why are we here? Why are we doing this? But she confirms that her friends did not like Nick. And I think that their approval matters more. Honestly, I think that their comments just confirmed what she was already feeling, but I don't think he needed an audience to be rejected personally, but the way that she talks about it with her mom is just he can be great. I can see what we could be. You shouldn't stay with someone based off of potential, especially if you're going to be dragging it like this. No one is having fun. And so the Lachey's enter the chat because it's time for everyone to try on wedding dresses and try on, their suits. It's obvious that Hannah is missing, so it's only Taylor, Marissa, and Ashley. And it's really sweet with their moms. Sounds like all of the moms are shocked at the fact that their daughters have chosen Ramses or Garrett because they're so far from their type. But after they've gotten to converse with them, they're like, okay, I can see why my daughter chose them. There's also a moment with Ashley's mom where she says that she feels like she's known Tyler for years. And I'm like, okay, so what interactions are happening that we're not seeing? And how honest is he being with her mother? I doubt it. The time has come to see a conversation with Hannah and Nick because obviously they're not trying on clothing, right? Comes in from work, sits on the couch. She has this notebook on her lap. She's like, you said you wanted someone to push you, but have I pushed too much? And he's like, yeah, sometimes. I think that you're mean to me sometimes, yeah. She starts reciting the things that she listed back in the hotel room. The respect, the delusion, the emotion, I think it was emotional awareness or social awareness. All of these issues that she has with Nick, which funny enough, are all things that I think she needs to work on. But she's like, I made this list in Mexico and they are still my concerns to this day. This conversation, like, you already have the upper hand. You're the person in power. You're the one deciding where it's going. A person with class would handle this in a different way, but she's choosing to throw jabs, and he calls it out. He's like, look at you, you're throwing low blows for no reason. And she keeps demanding that he answer certain questions with like examples on the spot. And I think that that's so manipulative because he's not in that mind frame. Also, you have a head start with your notes in your notebook in front of you. If you want examples, give him a second and he'll gather them. But to be like, well, give me examples. Give me, like, this shouldn't be an interrogation. And again, you guys, don't get me wrong. These conversations are important to have. They are, and you should have had them at length before. This isn't the way to get answers. And if you have to force it like this is not your person, and it's okay. You don't have to tear someone down. I'm not saying you have to be nice even, but you don't have to be disrespectful. So she basically pulls the plug on the relationship. She's like, you know, honestly, this isn't fair to us, and it would be foolish basically to try on a wedding dress and a tux. And then she calls him out for like trying to talk out how this breakup talk would go, because apparently he just didn't want to look bad on camera. And I get it, because all she has done, even when he's not present, is to talk bad about him. And he has no idea yet just how bad she went in on him. But from the beginning, he made it clear that appearances are important. He didn't want to talk about sex on camera. And I'm sure that he wants this breakup to appear as amicable as possible. But if anybody's going to look bad in this, it's not him. He can develop those life skills and be an incredible partner to someone someday. That stank attitude will get her left at the door every time. But it's just so funny watching her pivot this narrative that, you know, did she ever know him? He's being so manipulative and trying to control how this is ending. Ma'am, you were the one that pulled up to this breakup with notes. I don't think he's the one doing the manipulating here. I feel bad because he's like, honestly, like, I feel like a failure. Like, I'm gonna feel terrible. But honestly, no, you won't. You're gonna feel so much better when you don't have someone in your ear telling you that you ain't shit. You know what I mean? He'll be fine. So next up, we're 4 days before the wedding. We see everyone basically go on like their last minute dates. We see a moment with Ramses and Marissa that I'm like, if y'all get married, y'all are gonna be divorced within a year. So they're like in this like hot tub situation, and Ramses and Marissa's asking Ramses, you know, like who's gonna be there from his family. He says that he didn't invite his Guyanese side, and she's like, why? And he says it's because they went to his first wedding and they're still Facebook friends with his ex. Okay. And I'm like, okay, I mean, that's interesting that you haven't set a boundary with them to the point that they can't go to your new wedding. Okay. And so Marissa's like, well, you know, hopefully this is your last one, so they'll miss out because I want this to be my last wedding. And she says that like it scares her that he's been divorced before, because in her family, all she has ever seen is divorce. And while of course it's an option, she just doesn't want to treat marriage like there's always the option to opt out. And she even goes as far as saying that like she's down to be unhappy 5 to 7 years in a marriage before considering divorce. And Ramses, who has been divorced before, is like, 5 years of unhappiness? And she's like, I can't be afraid that you're gonna leave me at like any minor inconvenience. And he's like, no, it's not like that. And they're all smiles. And I honestly, you guys, for the life of me, don't know when it turned. But Marissa just started being like, I feel like you're not taking initiative in things. Like, you're not prioritizing our wedding. Maybe it came up because he already had one and she's like, you're not being active and this is my first and only. So I think it started with her being like, oh yeah, we're going to meet your mom soon. Oh, I have to get her a gift, and then I have to get them a gift for the wedding. Are you going to get my mom a gift? And he's like, yeah, I'm going to get her a gift. And she's like, okay, well, I want to make sure that you get on that because I don't want to have to remind you. And he's like, yeah, no, I got it. And it sounds like he has still not contributed to any of the wedding planning. So she feels like she's carrying the load of like the little things like gifts to make an impression for their families, but also the wedding planning, while also being a law student, while also doing the show. And she's just like, I don't want to be in a marriage where the wife carries all of the emotional, mental labor. Like, I don't want to have to carry all that. And he flat out says that he just prioritizes one thing at a time, and he just hasn't made this a priority. And again, this is one of those arguments that they're like smiling through it and like trying to push past it, but it's important. How you show up for the little things represent how you show up for the big things. I will always stand by that. And I think that what she's talking about is weaponized incompetence, which is an epidemic in hetero relationships. So I'm glad that she's talking about it. I'm just like, you're talking about it 4 days before your wedding. Ashley and Tyler finally skydive, you guys, and then they have like this cute little picnic. This girl is so far gone into this man. I'm like, Ashley, you're so smart. Don't be stupid in love. Ask the questions. And this is the problem with like social media and these shows, that we know so much more than is shown. And I just can't take their scene seriously anymore. We see Garrett and Taylor, and they're like at this like science exhibit / art gallery. It made me a little dizzy because of all of the projections, but it's really sweet. They're having dinner here. Their humor is now like matching up, because if you guys remember, I used to say that Taylor's humor was a bit rough, but I think they're more in sync now. The last scene, 2 days before the wedding, Ramses and Marissa's apartment. Ramses is like cradling his head. Marissa comes up to him, and this is the most vague conversation, but the vibes are off. He says that they're usually able to get past their disagreements, but he just feels like things are getting heavier, and he's just unsure about like what that'll mean for their future. And they're not saying if something specific happened, but Marissa's like, it sounds like you were sure and then you started talking to other people, and then now you're unsure about our future. I think it's getting to him basically, that he's been married before and he doesn't want to repeat the same mistakes again. So he just wants to make sure that they align on the big things and small things at this point, everything. He's just doubting the whole situation, and Marissa looks heartbroken. Like, it looks like this was like a curveball to her. She looks like she had been crying. I don't know if we're gonna see them at the altar. I know that for sure we'll see Taylor and Garrett. Will they say yes or no? Same thing for Ashley and Tyler. But Ramses and Marissa, I'm not sure. I feel like this whole wedding planning situation has been a mess. I've been yapping for a long time, so I would love to know your thoughts on these last 2 episodes. Next week we get the wedding episode, so I would love to know your predictions. Who do you think is going to say yes? Who do you think is going to say no? Then we get the reunion afterwards. It's just so much happening. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.